So this is Kenny Fuller. He rides for Bike Religion, Simple Green, and he's joining us today at our CyclingIllustrated.com launch party. And first of all, we'd like to thank you for coming and being so gracious and letting us interview you in front of a live audience, because that's not always easy. So
thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And I always want to get right to this, as I do in every interview. Do you ever mentor any young cyclists?
Oh yeah, many of them. There's been a number. Probably the most famous one is Greg LeMond. Back when he was a teenager, he used to come up to me after the races that I'd do up in Northern California and ask me what I did for this and that. And I was very fortunate to see him win his first World Championship in 1983. I was there, saw him break away at the end, and was in the pits when he came into the finish.
Wow, that's awesome. Why don't you give us a little bit of your background and tell me what your accolades are in the sport so far?
Well, I've been racing for 51 years. I started racing when I was 13. I'm 64 now. I was a member of the 72, 76 Olympic team. Didn't get to compete, just was named to the teams. I won 7 world championships, 43 national championships, and of course have that world record in the hour on the velodrome.
Tell me about that world record.
That was, 3 years ago, 2009, and I just come back from the World Championships where I won the time trial, and Roger at the from the velodrome says, "Kenny, why don't you go for the world record? You're in great shape." And so I went and I hadn't ridden the track for maybe 10 years, and I never really raced the track, but I hadn't even been on the track, and so I went and did about 3 or 4 training sessions with Roger, and went for it and ended up breaking the record.
That's great. Also, I wanted to ask you a couple more questions. You're 64 years old.
Yes.
How do you keep so physically fit at 64 years old and ride your bike every day like you do?
I ride a lot of miles, and of course I have a very lovely wife who is a nutritionist and a personal trainer, and she makes sure that she tries to make sure that I eat right. Sometimes I sneak around. Okay.
She wants you to speak up. You want to?
That's my wife.
Well, let me ask you this for the record then. Your wife emailed in and she asked me to ask you, how's it like under a food program with the food Nazi over there?
It's very tough. We're always battling over the food because I have a tendency to want to eat some bad things, and she wants me to eat perfectly right, and she's right. I know that, but I still want to sneak time and time again.
Well, let me ask you this question. Let's get to this. Have you had more pain of discipline or regret in your career?
What was that now?
Do you have more pain of discipline or regret? It's one of the hardest questions, and I ask a lot of people this because, what stopped you from riding in Europe? Was it the discipline end, or was it the regret, or where do you go from there?
In my time, no American had ever baited in Europe. I kind of watched a few people go over there in front of me, and they all came back with their tail between their legs. It was not, it's like Yankee go home. They didn't treat us very well. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any contacts over there, so I decided not to go. It was too difficult of a thing. The first American that really made it in Europe was Jack Boyer, about 7 years younger than me, and he had relatives in Paris. So he went and stayed with them, and he was the first one that made it into the tour.
Awesome. You've been in the Olympics before, and the Olympics are coming up. Tell me about what year you went to the Olympics and what that event was like for you.
I was there in '72. That was when they had the Israeli, the terrorist attack on the Israelis, and it was very, very scary for me at the time. But all I was concerned about was riding my bike. And I actually didn't get the ride. Someone else kind of like beat me out in the end. So unfortunately, I didn't get the ride.
Awesome. What are a couple tips you can give a younger rider that wants to sustain the abilities that you have throughout your entire career? Because there's a lot of young guys that are riding, but what are the main tips that you can give them?
It's not easy. Stick with it. Just try to stay focused, and just listen to your people that have been around for a while, and try different things to find out what works for you. And again, the focus and discipline.
Well, let me ask you this question. How do you get a younger rider that comes out on fire in the sport? How do you get them to stay disciplined after 10, 15 years of riding and still hold that same passion?
I don't know. Most of the guys I talk to are like just beginning. Like I said, I kind of am more of a mentor than a coach, because I kind of stayed with riding on the bike myself. So I haven't spent a lot of time just kind of like coaching people and seeing what they're doing. I just talk to them on the rides, try to help them, and they go where they go. So when they hit that 10 to 15 years, it's kind of hard. A lot of times they disappear, or they go away, and if they're good, they go away and they ride like Greg LeMond.
Right. Well, we want to thank you for joining us today. You're one of the sweetest guys. We're so happy that you talked to us. Do you have anything that you want to add?
No.
No?
That's it.
All right. Well, thank you. This is Kenny Fuller and Brandon Hale in the conversation on CyclingIllustrated.com. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.